Nangong Hao could not employ the path of time and space. Little did he realize that Nangong Hao had attained a power that rivaled even the path of time and space. Chapter 319. The Reincarnation Palace closes. The Naiha Bridge over the Wangchuan River, the interior of the Reincarnation Palace, formed a distinct small world. As the crowd entered, it felt as though they had stepped into the realm of the underworld. The atmosphere was eerie and oppressive, shrouded in a faint mist. A portion of the mist from the Demon Valley emanated from this very place, merging with the demonic aura rising from below, resulting in a transformation. If the mist within the Reincarnation Palace were pure, it would only affect the soul. Moreover, it is not merely adverse effects. Rather, there exists a certain refining quality. Engaging in cultivation here is indeed a fortuitous occurrence. Yet, now that we have entered, who would merely wish to undergo a superficial cultivation before departing, without aspiring to attain the ultimate legacy? A resounding boom startled the myriad beings observing the interior of the Luanhui Palace. They gazed about in astonishment. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "The great door of the Luanhui Palace has closed." At this moment, all beings turned in unison. Indeed, the entrance through which they had just entered had vanished entirely. The great door of the Luanhui Palace, which had been perpetually ajar due to damage, was now inexplicably shut, creating a complete and independent microcosm. There was no retreat. We could only advance, someone pondered aloud. Is this the machination of someone attempting to force us to venture elsewhere? Or perhaps the Luanhui Palace is selecting its inheritors? Regardless, it appears that only by obtaining the legacy of the Luanhui Palace can we hope to escape, right? The last speaker's words garnered the agreement of many beings. The Luanhui Palace was once a dominant force, its power surpassing even that of the Qianji Pavilion. Given the strength of those present, attempting to break through by force was nearly impossible. Our sole reliance lies in acquiring the legacy here, which was indeed their original intent. Thus, the prospect of exiting became less daunting. With this thought, the beings gradually relaxed their anxious hearts. However, Nangong Hao suddenly recalled something and remarked calmly. The foreign being with the mirror avenue seemed to have fled in this direction. Upon hearing this, the spirits' hearts surged with alarm once more. Could it be that the foreign beings have already taken control of this place, seeking to ensnare us all? Nangong Xuancha, can your space avenue allow you to leave this place? Zhou Yin inquired solemnly. No, Nangong Hao shook his head. He had attempted this when the door closed. A peculiar force here suppressed his avenue powers. Upon hearing this, the myriad beings felt a chill in their hearts. If even the space avenue could not freely traverse in and out, could it be that there was indeed treachery afoot? Regardless, everyone must exercise caution and refrain from internal strife. Zhou Yin stepped forward, speaking gravely. The beings exchanged glances, and a murmur of agreement arose, though it lacked fervor. Observing this, Zhou Yin sighed, gathering the 10th team as disciples to be on guard. With the path behind them severed, they could only move forward. In the face of uncertainty, the myriad beings instinctively acted together. They advanced through the mist, and after a short distance, they heard the sound of rushing water. Is there a river here? The beings approached with curiosity, only to behold a vast river surging mightily. Although termed a river, it was nearly akin to an ocean, for its length seemed endless, and its width obscured the opposite bank. Only by the stone tablet, standing at the river's edge, inscribed with the words Wangchuanhe, did they realize it was indeed a river. All present were formidable beings with keen eyesight, many of whom had cultivated ocular divine abilities. Yet, they too could not discern the river's length or breadth. One being cast their mount across, eager to test whether it could fly over. The mount, which had been soaring smoothly, suddenly plummeted into the river with a splash, as though yanked by an unseen force, losing control and crashing into the waters. Subsequently, it let out a wretched cry as it was corroded into a pile of stark white bones, only to vanish, its soul unable to be summoned back, transforming into a vengeful spirit within the river, wailing incessantly. The myriad beings then realized that countless vengeful spirits resided within Wangchuanhe. In fact, it seemed as if the entire river was composed of vengeful souls. How many beings had perished in this boundless river, devoid of beginning or end? In that instant, the beings were filled with dread. While others were astonished, Nangong Hao was scanning the surroundings. He was searching for the Naiha Bridge. There exists the Naiha Bridge above Wangchuanhe, and on that bridge, the Mengpo waits. He was well acquainted with this legend. Soon, Nangong Hao spotted a bridge emerging faintly through the mist in the distance. The other beings noticed it as well. Someone remarked in confusion, "We didn't TC this bridge earlier." Regardless of the suspicions surrounding the bridge, the beings nonetheless approached it. As they drew near, they discovered that the bridge remained shrouded in indistinctness, barely discernible. Yet, they could make out the figure of a hunched old woman atop the bridge. One curious soul called out, "Elder, can you hear me?" The old woman did not respond. Unlike the others, Nan Gonghao advanced without hesitation, aware that to cross Wangchuan one must traverse the Naiha Bridge, thereby facing the trial of Meng Per. Upon seeing Nan Gonghao approach, Zhou Yin was instantly taken aback. "Nan Gongshuansha, come back. Do not worry, I shall scout the path. There is no other way across this river," Nan Gonghao stated calmly. At his words, the myriad beings were perplexed. "How do you know?" The sword disciple from the sword sect coldly interjected. "You seem quite familiar with this place. Could it be that certain individuals have been whispering in your ear?" This remark was laden with insinuation. Just moments ago, the foreign beings had sought to win over Nan Gonghao. If anyone had indeed been passing him information, it could only be the foreign beings. Moreover, Nan Gonghao's demeanor was overly composed, as if he were privy to everything. Trapped in this predicament, having recently witnessed the might of Wangchuan, even the divine-level sage kings dared not act recklessly. Yet he strolled toward this unknown bridge with ease. To claim he knew nothing seemed implausible. Furthermore, considering their earlier coercion of Nan Gonghao to swear an oath, his vehement reaction leading to a self-destructive act raised many eyebrows. All of his actions were exceedingly suspect. Nevertheless, Nan Gonghao paid no heed to their doubts and stepped before the Naiha Bridge. As he approached, the bridge remained enveloped in mist, rendering its material and shape indistinguishable. Yet, he resolutely walked upon it. The moment Nan Gonghao set foot on the bridge, everything before him became clear. He discerned that the bridge was constructed of weathered blue stone, worn and uneven, making each step a potential stumble. After taking only 5 or 6 steps, he nearly toppled several times. This path and bridge seemed decidedly unwelcoming to visitors. Nonetheless, Nan Gonghao continued to tread cautiously, ultimately reaching the hunched old woman. The old woman appeared ancient, her face marked with deep wrinkles akin to channels carved by the river of time. Her eyes were clouded as she fixed her gaze upon Nan Gonghao, then raised a bowl of soup. In a raspy voice, she said, "Child, drink this, and you shall forget all your troubles." Nan Gonghao replied with a faint smile, "I have no troubles." "You do. You are despised, feared, and scorned by others. Should you drink this bowl of soup, you could forget everything." Meng Pa chuckled, not in a sinister manner, but rather with an unexpected kindness. Yet, Nan Gonghao shook his head. "Their disdain, fear, and scorn of me are their concerns, not mine. Why should I care? Do you not feel a sense of disconnection, a profound loneliness?" Meng Pa inquired. "Wild beasts invariably tread alone, while cattle and sheep congregate in herds," Nan Gonghao replied nonchalantly. Meng Pa gazed deeply at Nan Gonghao for an extended moment before hoarsely stating, "You possess an air of arrogance." Nan Gonghao merely smiled in silence. After a brief pause, Meng Pa continued, "You wield the power of the great Tao of reincarnation. Why do you still seek to come here?" "Because I wish to," Nan Gonghao answered with tranquility. "What a bold desire. Then proceed, but they shall not follow." Meng Pa surprisingly conceded. "And what if they attempt to force their way?" Nan Gonghao was acutely aware that these beings would not relent. "I have been dead for countless millennia, and should anyone be able to escort me to reincarnation, it would indeed be a joyous event," Meng Pa replied leisurely. Nan Gonghao nodded and walked towards the opposite side of the Naihe Bridge. Meanwhile, those beings still standing in place watched as Nan Gonghao's figure vanished upon the bridge, leaving them in astonishment. He truly passed through? The multitude of beings could no longer contain their anticipation. They too wished to follow. Yet they were hesitant, thus casting their gazes towards the direction of the academy. Zhou Yin and others wore expressions of distress, unable to fathom how Nan Gonghao had crossed without bringing them along. What is the situation? No matter. I must see for myself. One being could no longer hold back and dashed forward. With the first, naturally came the second, then the third, and the fourth. Approximately 100 beings surged forth. The Naihe Bridge was not wide enough to accommodate so many at once. Yet curiously, as they ascended, the bridge expanded to accommodate them. The beings behind were taken aback. Those already on the bridge had intended to return and inform their friends and family, but discovered that the Naihe Bridge offered no chance to turn back. They could only move forward, and upon glancing back, they beheld the boundless Wangchuan River. with vengeful souls thrashing within. The Nahi Bridge served as the boundary between life and death. Upon stepping onto this bridge, all ties to the mortal realm were severed. No matter the unwillingness, the rage, or even the cries of despair, it was in vain. Such is the essence of a Nahi Bridge. Only then did those beings comprehend. It was not that Nan Gonghao could not return. It was that he was unable to return. A sense of relief washed over the multitude. Even Zhou Yin and others began to piece together the underlying reasons, their expressions softening. The more than 100 beings who had stepped onto the bridge immediately approached Meng Pe. Under the weight of her oppressive power, they were compelled to advance. When Meng Pe offered the soup, some refused, while others dared to sip. Those who drank became instantly indifferent, forgetting everything, even the identities of their companions. This sight horrified the other beings. Some attempted to force their way across the Nahi Bridge. Yet Meng Pe simply lifted her spoon and gently tapped it. Suddenly, the heavens churned and the waters of Wang Chuan surged, unleashing colossal waves that crashed upon the intruding beings. With a resounding splash, those who had dared to charge forward vanished without a trace. From a distance, many beings witnessed this scene, their hearts racing. Everyone, I perceive that old woman possesses formidable strength. Since we all wish to cross, let's not hide our intentions. Perhaps the strongest among our various factions can lead the way and clear the path, Wang Yuho boldly proclaimed. The multitude of powerful beings exchanged glances and nodded in unison. Nan Gonghao had already defied the odds and crossed some time ago. None knew what treasures he may have acquired. If he truly obtained a legacy, it would be a cause for lamentation, especially for the Jianzong's Jianzi, who grew increasingly anxious. Thus, a throng of beings surged onto the Nahi Bridge, which astonishingly accommodated them as well. Observing this, Meng Pe remained unfazed and calmly stated, "Come, partake of the soup and forget the troubles of the mortal realm." "Old woman, I advise you to step aside," Wang Yuho coldly retorted. "I have guarded the Nahi Bridge for countless ages. Even the Lord of Reincarnation Palace has never compelled me to yield." Meng Pe's expression turned icy. "Do not waste words with her. Strike directly," Jianzi commanded, launching a powerful punch. Though he had lost his sword and could not wield the sword path, nor could he employ divine powers or other abilities, his might remained formidable. This punch, imbued with overwhelming force, hurtled towards Meng Pe. Many beings gasped in astonishment. Indeed, the strongest heirs were all extraordinary. While the sword path was renowned, Jianzi's punch now left many beings trembling in fear. Even some beings of higher cultivation sensed their inability to contend with him. This was truly terrifying. Yet, as the punch approached, Meng Pe merely took half a step back, and then the Nahi Bridge vanished. The great bridge that once spanned the Wangchuan River had disappeared, leaving those beings unable to utilize divine powers or the strength of the great Tao to fly. One by one, they plummeted like dumplings into the tumultuous waters of Wangchuan. Though they had previously understood the peril of Wangchuan, only upon falling did they realize they had underestimated its ferocity. The vengeful souls within were truly endless. As they emitted piercing shrieks, the souls of the beings were shaken. Simultaneously, their physical forms were being devoured by these malevolent spirits. It turned out that Wang Chuan did not possess corrosive properties. The reason beings who fell within vanished so swiftly was due to being completely consumed by these vengeful souls. At that moment, many beings caught off guard fell victim as well. The wails of the vengeful souls rendered them immobile and defenseless, leading to their complete consumption. Even those with strong resistance found themselves overwhelmed due to their inability to wield the great Tao and divine powers. "Master, save me. Father, help. Mother, I am in such pain. Who can come to my rescue?" A chorus of anguished cries echoed from within Wangchuan. It was the lamentations of those struggling, surrounded by vengeful souls, their bodies on the brink of being utterly torn apart, enduring unimaginable torment. Among the beings, there were numerous formidable entities. Leaving aside the 6 strongest and many leaders of first-rate factions, they were not particularly fearful. Relying on their robust physical forms or unique treasures, they swam through Wangchuan, striving to reach the opposite shore. Yet the Wangchuan River resembled an infinite ocean. No matter how hard they tried, the shore remained elusive. As time elapsed, those powerful factions began to suffer casualties. Even members of the Jixia Academy found themselves unable to withstand the pressure. At this moment, Nan Gonghao stood on the true opposite side of these beings. Having crossed the Nahi Bridge, he could behold the entirety of Wangchuan. In truth, it was merely about a yard wide. Not to mention cultivators, even ordinary individuals with a running start might leap across. Yet at this moment, those powerful beings struggled in the water. Some are merely treading water, essentially spinning in place. Nan Gonghao sighed softly, gazing at the Naihe bridge that had not yet vanished, and said, Meng Po, allow them to come up. The casualties are too great. It was not out of compassion that Nan Gonghao spoke, but rather because an impending battle loomed. The deaths of these beings would be a waste. Even if they could only flee upon reaching the battlefield, they would still draw some enemy forces, would they not? Meng Po replied calmly, You have merely crossed the bridge. You have not obtained the inheritance of the Reincarnation Palace, and thus cannot command me. Just as Nan Gonghao was about to respond, he felt a peculiar wave of energy. He turned to gaze into Wang Chuan, where Wang Yuho had produced a map. The map depicted the landscape of the realm, soaring into the sky, rapidly enlarging, and then whisking away all those from the unbeaten dynasty. The Jixia Academy was also compelled to summon a ship-shaped treasure to carry the students. Other formidable beings similarly retrieved their life-preserving artifacts, be they flying swords, large bowls, or various effigies. In summary, a plethora of treasures emerged, carrying the majority of beings upward. The remaining individuals from the smaller factions or wandering cultivators were tragically struggling in the river, pleading for the assistance of the great powers. Some of these superior forces sought to absorb these individuals, selecting a few of value to rescue. The rest, devoid of background or worth, were helplessly watched by countless beings as they vanished into the depths of the Wangchuan River. This single river consumed approximately 1/3 of the souls that entered this realm. Among the powerful beings suspended in midair, some unleashed beams of light to open a passage, successfully crossing the blockade of the Wangchuan River and reaching the opposite bank. Upon arrival, they retracted their treasures and beheld the calm and patient Nan Gonghao. The expressions of all beings turned unfriendly as they speculated on how Nan Gonghao had managed to cross. Had he consumed that peculiar soup? Or was this entire scenario a scheme orchestrated by him in collusion with that old woman to ensnare them? Even Zhou Yin turned to Nan Gonghao, hesitantly questioning. Nan Gong, Inspector? Yes, it is I, Nan Gonghao acknowledged, fully aware of their thoughts and not shying away. I did not consume the Meng Po soup. Upon hearing this, the expressions of many beings shifted. How could Nan Gonghao know the name of that strange soup? Furthermore, he had crossed safely without partaking of it. The claim that this was not his design was met with skepticism. The swordsman stepped forward once more, coldly interrogating. If you did not drink the soup, how did you safely make it across? Nan Gonghao regarded the swordsman with derision, replying, I stated I did not drink it because there was nothing I regretted. Thus, she consented. While you all focus on questioning me, has anyone considered whether you ever converse sincerely with Meng Po? In your usual high-handedness, you expect compliance from all. However, this is the Reincarnation Palace, which, although fallen, once held supreme authority. I suggest you refrain from posturing too grandly. Maintain due respect. After all, this is a resting place for the martyrs who once fought valiantly for the Guangyuan celestial domain. As Nan Gonghao's voice grew increasingly stern, all beings involuntarily revealed expressions of embarrassment and shame. Even the elders from several formidable factions could not help but sigh. It is our fault, Zhou Yin admitted, turning to the Naihe bridge and slightly bowing. I hope the predecessors can forgive us. Others followed suit, offering their apologies, though some remained dismissive. The swordsman, having lost face, was visibly enraged. He would never apologize to Meng Po, even though he had been the one to initiate the confrontation. Nan Gonghao paid him no mind. He merely sought to teach these individuals a lesson. Should they refuse to repent, they would face the consequences. This Naihe bridge was merely the first hurdle. An academy student cautiously suggested, I wonder if we could collect some of the vengeful souls here to temper our treasures. Zhou Yin hesitated. With a casual gesture, Nan Gonghao reached into the Wangchuan River and extracted hundreds of thousands of vengeful souls, tossing them to the student. Is this sufficient? The student beamed with delight. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Inspector. The normally unruly Nan Gonghao was unexpectedly considerate, leaving the academy members quite unsettled. Other beings also sought vengeful souls for their own purposes. Upon witnessing Nan Gonghao's actions, they attempted to retrieve some souls as well. However, just as they reached out, a spoon flew from the Naihe bridge. You do not deserve to touch them. Meng Po's hoarse voice echoed. The beings felt immensely awkward, retracting their hands sheepishly. A portion of them cautiously approached Nan Gonghao, requesting, Inspector, may we have some vengeful souls? We are willing to exchange equally. While souls from outside were not difficult to find, Those within the Huangchuan River were evidently distinct, being the souls of powerful beings, high in quality and abundant in number. Nangong Hao, not averse to trading, readily replied, "Certainly, anyone wishing for vengeful souls may exchange." The beings were overjoyed, rushing over. Some offered sacred herbs in exchange, while others presented unique treasures, cultivation techniques, and various rare items. Through the vengeful souls of the Huangchuan River, Nangong Hao acquired dozens of treasures. The river's supply of souls was inexhaustible, and as he amassed wealth, many beings looked on with envy. However, their discontent was of little consequence, for they had offended Meng Pe. Once it was clear that no one else sought to trade, Nangong Hao led the way deeper into the palace. He noticed that no one dared to act before him, clearly acknowledging the unusual nature of the Reincarnation Palace and wishing to let him pave the way. Yet, it mattered not. Nangong Hao intended to enter regardless. By leading the charge, he stood to gain numerous treasures. Chapter 322. The Hall of King Qingguang. The mirror of Sin Nangong Hao walked at the forefront, with those behind him casting glances filled with hatred or indifference. Yet, following the transactions at the Huangchuan River, some gazes turned complex. Although Nangong Hao engaged in equal trade, he could have easily chosen not to deal with them, especially given that Su Wuhui, the Emperor of Fortune, was by his side. What would he possibly lack? His willingness to assist stemmed from a genuine kindness within him. More importantly, while they struggled in the Huangchuan River, Nangong Hao had clearly possessed the power to strike back, but refrained from harming those who had once forced him to swear an oath. This led many to question if they had erred gravely. However, before they could ponder further, they were met with a sight even more terrifying. 10 grand. Black palaces emanating a chilling and forbidding aura, as though monstrous entities lurked within. Numerous beings concentrated their vision on the doors of the palaces, each adorned with plaques bearing the titles of the halls. Hall of King Qingguang, Hall of King Chu Jiang, Hall of King Songdi, Hall of King Wu Guan, Hall of King Yin Luo, Hall of King Bian Sheng, Hall of King Taishan, Hall of King Du Shi, Hall of King Ping Deng, Hall of King Zhuanlin. Was this truly the legendary 10 halls of Yin Luo? It was said that each ruler was at the pinnacle of the Nirvana level Saint Kings. Wang Yu sighed, aware that the 7 formidable powers were familiar with the Reincarnation Palace, even if they were not fully versed in its internal workings. They certainly recognized the 10 halls of Yin Luo. Nangong Hao too was cognizant of the 10 halls of Yin Luo and could sense that while entry was attainable, exiting would be a daunting challenge. Zhou Yin turned to Nangong Hao and inquired, "Shall we enter?" Nangong Hao, puzzled, glanced back and asked, "Are you asking me?" Xiao Yin faltered, feeling somewhat awkward. Indeed, his strength surpassed Nangong Hao's, and he was the de facto leader. However, following the events at the Huangchuan River, they sensed a certain benevolence from the Reincarnation Palace towards Nangong Hao, prompting Zhou Yin to instinctively consult him before proceeding. Other beings, too, felt a sense of embarrassment following Nangong Hao, fearing that word would spread, branding them as mere followers of him, which would be a tremendous disgrace. This was particularly true for the members of the Sword Sect, with the swordsman glaring coldly at Nangong Hao, challenging, "Dare you gamble once more?" Nangong Hao understood that as a swordsman, this individual was no ordinary foe. Even without his sword, his combat prowess would be formidable. Nevertheless, Nangong Hao remained unfazed, responding nonchalantly, "If the Sword Sect seeks to lose another swordsman, why should I deny you your wish?" The swordsman's expression turned frigid. "You are quite confident." "It is not my confidence. It is your folly," Nangong Hao replied as he approached the hall of King Qingguang. This hall, as Nangong Hao had learned in his past life, was responsible for judging the morality of souls. There existed a treasure known as the Mirror of Sin, capable of reflecting one's past deeds and misdeeds, a truly formidable artifact. Nangong Hao was deeply intrigued by this treasure and was naturally unwilling to let it slip away. Observing him approach the Qingguang Wangdian, the other beings hesitated momentarily. Some chose to follow, while others opted for different halls. The young man in white from the Kuo Dao Min headed to the Yin Luo Wangdian. The English female sect proceeded to the Zhuan Luan Wangdian, while the Zhan Xingong made their way to the Wu Guan Wangdian. The Jianzong Jixia Academy and the Bu Bai Huang Chao all decided to follow Nangong Hao to the Qingguang Wangdian. It wasn't merely a desire to accompany him. Rather, they believed his choice of this location was intentional and purposeful. Naturally, they too wished to see if there were any advantages to be gained. As they arrived at the Qingguang Wangdian, the grand doors remained unsealed, and upon their approach, they opened automatically. However, The interior was engulfed in darkness, rendering visibility impossible, as if a colossal beast had opened its maw, poised to devour anyone who dared enter. The crowd was engulfed in uncertainty, unable to comprehend the situation. In contrast, Nan Gonghao stepped inside nonchalantly. As the onlookers watched him fade into the shadows, a sense of tension enveloped them. Yet once inside, Nan Gonghao found himself in an ordinary hall, reminiscent of the Xingshan office at Jixia Academy. Flanking the hall were numerous grotesque sculptures of ghostly officials. At the forefront stood a high platform, behind which hung the Jiang Shanhai Tuesday. Despite the absence of ghost kings and officials conducting their business, an oppressive atmosphere lingered, instilling a sense of awe. Just as Nan Gonghao finished surveying his surroundings, a stream of beings surged in from behind, clearly intrigued. Once they entered, they marveled at the lifelike sculptures of ghost generals and officials, or gazed at the instruments of punishment behind them. The members of Jixia Academy were particularly captivated by the Jiang Shanhai Tu in the distance. "Teacher, what does that painting signify? I can't shake the feeling that souls are drawn into it," a student quietly inquired of Zhou Yan. Though not a student of Zhou Yan, he addressed all the scholars of Jixia Academy with respect, reflecting their generosity in imparting knowledge. However, this time, Zhou Yan hesitated. He scrutinized the painting and found himself perplexed. Sensing the lack of understanding among others, Nan Gonghao interjected to explain. "This is called the Jiang Shanhai Tuesday. The white and blue colors below depict waves, representing the sea, while the red circle above symbolizes the sun. In this painting, the sea represents the nation and its territories, while the sun signifies righteousness and integrity. Through contemplation, you may grasp the true essence of imperial authority and gain insight into the path of sovereign power. Among the myriad pathways, there lies imperial authority. The power of imperial authority is formidable, instilling fear in enemies even before battle, allowing one to command decree and judgment upon foes with lethal finality." While Nan Gonghao possessed the reincarnation Tao, a power surpassing this, he had no desire to waste time delving into the intricacies of the imperial authority. The other students, however, were not similarly disinclined. Upon hearing his words, they were filled with excitement, though some remained skeptical of their authenticity. Xiao Yun, cautiously probing the Jiang Shanhai Tu with his spiritual sense, confirmed the presence of profound power within it. "Very well, proceed," he uttered, prompting numerous students from Jixia Academy to hasten towards the painting to seek enlightenment. The divine guardians and 2 other inspectors stood by to protect them. Observing this, the other beings rushed forward as well, eager to glean insights from the artwork. Zhou Yan turned to Nan Gonghao and asked, "Will you not join them?" "I shall examine that Niejing Tai," Nan Gonghao replied, gesturing towards a distant high platform. On the right side of the hall stood an imposing pedestal, upon which rested a bronze mirror, its surface still capable of reflecting one's image despite the passage of time. The members of Bu Bai Huang Chao and Jianzong also took note of this and hastened over. Zhou Yan furrowed his brow, unwilling to lag behind, and declared, "Let's go." As Nan Gonghao and Zhou Yan approached, they discovered that the Bu Bai Huang Chao and Jianzong had already surrounded the area, issuing commands to other beings to keep their distance, displaying an air of dominance. The members of Bu Bai Huang Chao remained silent upon seeing Nan Gonghao, but the Jianzong drew their swords to obstruct him. "Stand back," a Jianzong sage commanded. Zhou Yan's expression turned frigid. "You dare impede those of Jixia Academy?" he retorted, who is unaware that Jixia Academy has already been invaded by beings from the outer realms. "You may not even know whether you are traitors." The Jianzong sage scoffed in response. In the distance, Jianzi cast a derisive glance at Nan Gonghao. An ordinary sage would not dare speak such words to Jixia Academy, indicating that this was a deliberate instruction from the higher echelons of Jianzong. Fuming with indignation, Zhou Yan found himself at a loss for words, as he suspected that if Jixia Academy continued down this path, they would inevitably be forced to retreat to the ancestral grounds for self-preservation. Nan Gonghao, however, was unyielding, delivering a sharp blow with his palm. The Jianzong sage had anticipated this, snorting coldly as his fellow disciples swiftly coordinated to form a sword array. The tempest of sword energy surged skyward, alarming many beings. Nan Gonghao found himself enveloped within this storm, facing the full force of a dozen sages. These were no ordinary sages, they were Jianzong disciples, hailing from various second-tier and even first-tier forces, all gifted individuals. Furthermore, Jianzong was renowned for its prowess and offensive capabilities. and the sword array could amplify the strength of its disciples exponentially. Even Zhou Yin was taken aback, activating his divine domain in an attempt to rescue him. Yet, Nan Gonghao merely scoffed, his eyes radiating golden light. With his Tian Yin Tong intertwined with the power of causality, he discerned the weakest point of the sword array. Naturally, the sword array had been subject to extensive study, rendering it nearly flawless. The weakness lay with a particular Jianzong disciple, who was simply too weak. Merely a 3-star sage, Nan Gonghao summoned the power of causality, reversing it with ease. The formation of the sword array was the outcome, but what was the cause? The existence of these disciples. He pointed at the 3-star sage disciple from Jianzong, illuminating him with the light of causality. The pastime frame of this disciple emerged behind him, depicting his childhood. With a swift motion, Nan Gonghao reached in and struck down the young disciple. With a violent cough, the original form of the Jianzong disciple within the sword array expelled a mouthful of blood. Though he had not yet vanished, his life force was already extinguished. The sheer pressure from the sword energy storm within the array had shattered him, leading to his instant demise. The sword array revealed a flaw. Ordinarily, having undergone countless rehearsals, losing even one member should not cripple the formation, even if they lost 3 or 4. The Jianzong disciples could swiftly adjust and compensate for the deficiency. However, they were up against Nan Gonghao. For him, even the slightest fraction of a second was ample time to react. With a sudden movement, he slipped through the sword array. Following this, an eruption of myriad powers surged forth from him, crashing towards the sword array. The disciples within the array sneered, confident that although they had allowed Nan Gonghao to escape, it did not imply their formation was weak. A singular sword began to materialize above the array, representing the pinnacle of swordsmanship. This force was so formidable that even Jianzi would hesitate to confront its edge. Nevertheless, Nan Gonghao paid it no heed. The myriad powers, harmonizing with the formation's energy, manifested numerous lethal strikes. These forces collided with the massive sword, resulting in a deafening explosion that reverberated throughout the entire hall. In the next moment, another series of deadly strikes emerged, followed by yet more. Then came another wave of strikes. Nan Gonghao summoned 4 duplicates, and the torrents of power cascaded forth like a waterfall. This terrifying force rendered the sword array utterly incapable of sustaining itself, on the brink of collapse. The disciples bore expressions of shock and fury, realizing the sheer terror of this replicated power. One individual was capable of overwhelming a dozen Jianzong disciples. At this moment, an exalted figure from the sword sect intervened, declaring, "Enough. You did not call for a halt when I was ensnared in the sword formation." Nan Gonghao transformed into chaos, evading the wrath of the exalted being, seeking death. The sword sect's exalted figure roared in fury. Zhou Yin frowned and approached, urging, "Sword sect, it would be wise to desist. Then let Nan Gonghao cease his actions first," retorted another elder from the sword sect. Accompanying Zhou Yin were others, yet they remained occupied, safeguarding the disciples of the Jixia Academy as they contemplated the Jianya Shanhai map. In that moment, the power of the divine domain enveloped the area where Nan Gonghao stood. Although the divine domain could not harm him, in his chaotic state, he was unable to harness the power of the great Tao to counterattack. Just as the myriad beings believed this farce would come to an end, a resonant sound of a zither echoed, influencing the power of the exalted figure from his sword sect. "This is the zither of celestial melody, a gift from Mo Ning," said Shangwan Xinghe with a light laugh. "The elder of the sword sect is doomed," remarked Wang Yueho, regaining his composure. Shangwan Xinghe's smile blossomed even more brightly. These fools fail to realize that slaying a few disciples is futile. Targeting an elder will truly wound their hearts. As the two exchanged hushed words, Nan Gonghao had already appeared behind the exalted elder of the sword sect. To be precise, there were 3 manifestations of Nan Gonghao. In an instant, the power of the great Tao engulfed the sword sect elder, while his divine domain exerted no influence whatsoever. Damn it! The others from the sword sect were consumed by rage and astonishment. The might of the exalted being was formidable, yet its true strength resided within the divine domain. Their divine domain could solidify the surrounding space into their own territory, shielding and repelling the powers of other beings. Now, however, Nan Gonghao had neutralized the sword sect elder's divine domain with a zither of celestial melody. Strictly speaking, the two could only contend using the power of the great Tao. Yet, Even the Elder, who had lived for countless years, could wield merely around 40 types of the Great Tao. At this moment, 3 manifestations of Nan Gonghao unleashed over 100 types of the Great Tao. Even if most were similar, it was far beyond what the Sword Sect Elder could withstand. Amidst the tempest of the Great Tao's power, a piercing scream echoed. It was the Sword Sect Elders. "Get away from me!" The other elders shouted in a frantic bid to rescue him. Yet, Nan Gonghao had already closed in on the injured Sword Sect Elder. Secretly activating the power of the Reincarnation Tao, he leaned close to the elder's ear and whispered, "In the name of the Yinluo Emperor, I sentence you to eternal damnation, to be ground to dust." A surge of reincarnation power erupted, enveloping the Sword Sect Elder. In his final moments, the Elder finally comprehended the nature of Nan Gonghao's power. With terror, he cried out, "No, beware this fellow." But before he could finish, the Sword Sect Elder was torn asunder. Thus fell an exalted being, slain by a mere youth of 6-star saint rank. Gasps of astonishment filled the air among the gathered beings. They recognized Nan Gonghao's prodigious talent. Yet none could have anticipated he possessed the capability to slay an exalted being. Chapter 324. The Ghostly Envoy Awakens. The Nirvana-level exalted being appears. Upon witnessing the demise of one of their own elders, the members of the Sword Sect were momentarily stunned. Yet soon, fury consumed them. This was an exalted being, a pillar of any supreme power. More importantly, he had been slain by a 6-star saint. If Nan Gonghao continued to live, what face would the Sword Sect have left? "Kill him!" The leader of the Sword Sect bellowed through clenched teeth. The other members followed suit, charging forth. Zhou Yin, though astonished, quickly shouted from a distance, "Come forth," and opposed the Sword Sect. Although Nan Gonghao was not well received at the Jixia Academy, and even less so outside, he remained a disciple of the academy. As a patrol envoy, he had contributed significantly to the institution. Should he be slain in public view, it would bring disgrace to the Jixia Academy. Wang Yueho and Shangguan Xinghe from the Invincible Dynasty exchanged glances, hesitating whether to intervene. Just then, a barely perceptible cracking sound echoed through the air. Upon hearing it, Nan Gonghao's expression shifted, and he instantly turned to the ghostly envoy sculptures. Not only he, but the other beings also sensed it, turning their heads in unison. At that moment, a 6-legged ape cried out in terror. The ghostly envoys have awakened. They are alive. All beings, whether engaged in battle or contemplating conflict, turned to look. The members of the Sword Sect were no exception. The cracking sound had grown clearer and more frequent. They beheld the stone sculptures fracturing as terrifying black mist surged forth, swirling within the Grand Hall. In mere moments, all the ghostly envoy sculptures exploded. Sinister apparitions emerged, exuding the power of saints. Of the 32 stone figures in the hall, 30 were now revealed as saints, while the remaining 2 were the exalted beings. Mere ghostly envoys. Deal with them. We shall handle Nan Gonghao, the leader of the Sword Sect Elder ordered. Understood. The multitude of Sword Sect disciples chorused. Meanwhile, Nan Gonghao shouted, "All members of the Jixia Academy, vacate the platform immediately." The distant disciples, engrossed in contemplating the Jiangya Shanhai map, were startled awake by his voice, which resonated with the power of Tianming. They stood in place, uncertain. However, Zhou Yin reacted swiftly, rushing over to seize several disciples. Other patrol envoys and divine guards also hastily gathered individuals, forcibly bringing them down. Although they were unaware of what was unfolding, it was evident that Nan Gonghao had sensed something amiss. After their departure, numerous ghostly envoys knelt towards the platform, including the 2 exalted ghostly generals. An invisible, terrifying force was released, emanating an overwhelming pressure that caused all present to shudder in primal fear. Run! Nan Gonghao could not afford to examine the mirror of calamity, forcing his way outward. The members of the Jixia Academy similarly fled, not daring to look back. They sensed that the invisible power likely stemmed from a being at the level of a Wuwa exalted, if not higher. All beings began to contemplate a terrifying possibility. Could it be that King Qin Guang was descending once more? Yet, hadn't the beings of the Reincarnation Palace been eradicated? Nevertheless, if Meng Pa could remain, how much more so could a formidable being like King Qin Guang? The Invincible Dynasty was not slow to act, swiftly following in Nan Gonghao's wake. The Sword Sect, too preoccupied with their own troubles, fled at great speed. Other beings scrambled to escape. Only those unfortunate souls still on the platform found themselves unable to escape. They were bound by that terrifying force, unable to break free, and could only scream in terror for salvation. But who would dare to assist? These beings did not even dare to glance back. Their desperate attempts to flee were already futile. The gates of King Qinguang's hall had been sealed. The path to exit transformed into a fog, and entering would merely lead one back to where they began. At this moment, the oppressive force intensified, and behind the table on the platform, a shadowy figure began to manifest. The figure was indistinct, obscured from clear view. Yet, as this shadow appeared, all beings on the platform began to scream in agony, succumbing to death, including several exalted beings who had no capacity to resist. Witnessing this, the faces of the gathered beings turned ashen. There was no escaping. They must find a way to resist. A being spoke in a low voice. Resist? That is a legendary Nirvana-level expert, on par with the 7 supreme leaders. How can we fight? Deploy the Imperial artifacts, esteemed powers. Indeed, only the Imperial artifacts can save us now. Whoever possesses a forbidden artifact, bring it forth for self-detonation. A cacophony of voices rose among the beings. The 3 formidable figures all turned their gazes towards Nangong Hao, clearly aware of his penchant for self-destructing forbidden artifacts. Nangong Hao raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, stating, "Do not look at me. I have no forbidden artifacts left. You can self-destruct a clone," Jianzi remarked coldly. The others' eyes lit up with realization. Indeed, given Nangong Hao's capabilities, self-destructing a clone would yield significant effects. If necessary, he could destroy several, as he had plenty to spare. A Qingwan from the southernmost region stepped forward, sharply declaring, "Nangong Hao, we all know that you can easily condense clones. You should act quickly, or else dying here will render your clones useless." Nangong Hao calmly replied, "Who told you that I keep my clones with me?" Upon hearing this, the hearts of all present sank. Nangong Hao had clones outside. He could resurrect himself at any moment. However, these individuals could not claim the same. As for coercing Nangong Hao, that was utterly impossible. He feared not death, so how could he be intimidated by them? Even the members of the Jixia Academy remained silent, refraining from pleading or pressuring Nangong Hao, for they understood it would be futile. Across the land, perhaps there were those who could command Nangong Hao's obedience, but certainly not their ilk. Finally, amidst the lingering hesitation, the figure behind the table on the high platform fully coalesced. It was a somewhat frail silhouette, the features obscured, and none dared to gaze upon it, for the power it emanated was undoubtedly at the Nirvana level. A mere breath from this figure could spell death for all beings present, including the divine-level Saint Kings. Yet, the beings felt a semblance of courage as they possessed forbidden artifacts on their persons, just as previously suggested. The self-detonation of a forbidden artifact would surely compel even a Nirvana-level Saint King to retreat momentarily, right? As the thoughts of the crowd swirled in confusion, a sharp crack echoed, the sound of the judgment would striking. "Who is beneath the hall, and what is the reason for your presence?" The voice of King Qinguang resonated, both distant and intimately close, piercing their souls. All beings instinctively shuddered, some unable to bear the weight of dread, collapsing to their knees. Nangong Hao sensed a shift within. He surmised that King Qinguang intended to execute judgment upon those present. He turned to the members of the Jixia Academy and said, "Those who have committed wrongful acts, step back." The members of the academy began to grasp the gravity of the situation. Their expressions fluctuated, with some indeed retreating. The other beings were also filled with trepidation. For who among them had lived without a single guilty secret? Shangguan Xinghe approached with a smile, inquiring, "Brother Nangong, is this to be a trial of the soul?" "No, it is something far more severe. It pertains to the heart of the Tao." Nangong Hao responded, maintaining a cordial demeanor towards Shangguan Xinghe. Shangguan Xinghe laughed heartily. "Then there is nothing to fear." Indeed, many present felt confident in their ability to withstand it. What defines a strong individual? Is it merely their elevated realm? Every true powerhouse must endure the trials of their Tao heart. Thus, few beings feared the examination of their Tao heart. Yet, Nangong Hao gazed towards the distant Nijingtai and murmured, "The Tao heart I speak of is not a mere trial. It is a destruction, and it will be personally executed by an imperial artifact." The expressions of Shangguan Xinghe and the other beings stiffened. Destroying the Tao heart with an imperial artifact? What madness is this? With a clear conscience, tempered through countless tribulations, one should remain unscathed. However, during the process of destruction, any hint of unusual emotion would be magnified infinitely. "Be cautious," Nangong Hao advised softly as he stepped forward, eager to be the first to attempt this trial. Upon witnessing his boldness, the crowd collectively exhaled, though their expressions were mixed. Was Nangong Hao setting an example for them, preparing their minds for what lay ahead? After all, the first to venture forth faced uncertainty, while those who followed could observe and better gauge the situation, ensuring greater safety. Thus, upon learning of the impending judgment, whether guilty or innocent, many retreated. Nangong Hao strode ahead, leaving the crowd behind. Immediately, a ghostly envoy approached. With a rustle, two chains, entwined with the aura of the underworld, flew forth, ensnaring Nangong Hao's neck and limbs. Oomph! Get lost! Nangong Hao bellowed, unleashing a tempestuous surge of lightning power. The path of thunder shattered the chains with ease. The radiant lightning, pure and fierce, specifically countered the sinister and ghostly. At that moment, the lightning illuminated the hall like the sun, obliterating not only the chains but also injuring the ghostly envoy. The other beings were taken aback, their hearts trembling at Nangong Hao's ferocity. How audacious he was, even when confronting a Nirvana-level Saint King. Impudent! A sharp, ghostly wail pierced the air. Two more ghostly envoys charged forward, this time 2 Dao-level Saint Kings. Nangong Hao's expression turned icy as he sternly rebuked, "I am innocent. How dare you presume to judge me from your lofty positions?" The lightning blazed brilliantly as 2 lightning whips coalesced. Simultaneously, pure yang flames and various energies that specifically countered ghostly beings were gathered under the power of the formation. With a crackle, the violent force struck the 2 Dao-level ghostly envoys, sending them hurtling away before they could seize Nangong Hao. Soon, other ghostly envoys charged in fury. Nangong Hao wielded the long whip, moving with the grace of windswept grass, unleashing terrifying energy that permeated the realm. The ghostly beings were unable to approach, their urgent cries falling on deaf ears. Thus, Nangong Hao steadily advanced towards the base of the high platform, fixing his gaze upon the Nirvana-level Saint King not far away. It was peculiar and terrifying. Although the Nirvana-level Saint King was clearly present, he remained utterly imperceptible, as if a black hole existed there, capable of absorbing everything, even divine consciousness. Nangong Hao reigned in his power. The surrounding ghostly beings roared in fury, yet none dared to approach, for they too feared King Qin Guang. "Who stands beneath the hall? And what crime have you committed?" King Qin Guang's voice resounded, devoid of any emotion. Nangong Hao declared loudly, "I am Nangong Hao, innocent. Bring forth the Nijing Tai." King Qin Guang did not elaborate further, but directly commanded the ghostly envoys to escort Nangong Hao to the Nijing Tai. The ghostly envoys converged. But Nangong Hao coldly scoffed, "Stand aside. I shall make my own way there." The multitude of ghostly envoys exhibited discernible emotions, even displaying anger. Yet they were also somewhat apprehensive. They surrounded Nangong Hao without launching an attack as they had previously. Thus, Nangong Hao made his way towards the Nijing Tai. The Niejing, an imperial artifact, harbored immense power. As Nangong Hao stood before it, a surge of black mist erupted, enveloping him in an instant and drawing him into the mirror. The multitude of beings attempted to use their divine consciousness, only to find themselves drawn in by the Niejing, risking harm to their souls. Helplessly, they could only tiptoe and crane their necks to catch a glimpse. Those of taller stature had a slight advantage. Yet, there were no images reflected in the Niejing. At this moment, Nangong Hao found himself before a vast steel metropolis. The modern world? Nangong Hao raised an eyebrow, observing the cars whizzing by, the fashionably dressed women in short skirts, and the hurried office workers with bags in tow. The elderly and infirm rushed onto buses, all indicating that this was indeed the modern world. In this instant, Nangong Hao noticed his past self approaching from a distance. More precisely, it was his self before traversing realms. Dressed in sportswear, he was about to cross the street when he quarreled with a driver who ran a red light. The driver, in the wrong, unable to contend with Nangong Hao, pressed the accelerator in an attempt to intimidate him. However, he miscalculated and failed to brake. With a crash, Nangong Hao was thrown aside, his head striking the curb, leading to his demise. The driver, upon witnessing the scene, was consumed by terror and fled in panic. However, the deceased and time-traveling Nangong Hao was oblivious to this spectacle. Yet, through the world conjured by the Neijing, Nangong Hao was able to behold it. Confused, he pondered the purpose of the Neijing showing him this. Soon, the truth revealed itself. The taxi driver's arrogance stemmed from the presence of a powerful figure backing him. Somehow, he managed to settle the matter with a mere payment of around 100,000, escaping without consequence. Nangong Hao's family, overwhelmed with grief and indignation, sought justice but found no assistance. On multiple occasions, they faced harassment and intimidation from thugs hired by the taxi driver, who warned them to cease their outcry. The taxi driver was ruthlessly merciless. Nangong Hao's family found no refuge from their plight, resigning themselves to despair. Each day, his parents wept bitterly. One was blinded by tears, while the other, lost in sorrow, succumbed to an accident at work. A once harmonious household, albeit poor, was shattered, leading to utter ruin. Following the death of Nangong Hao's father due to a work-related injury, his mother tragically took her own life by drowning. Witnessing this heart-wrenching scene, Nangong Hao could not claim indifference. Despite having encountered numerous divine beings and untold hardships, he could not disregard the suffering of his own flesh and blood. As Nangong Hao's countenance darkened, the intoxicated taxi driver drove to his home. He did not stop but scoffed derisively as he passed by. Understanding the significance of this moment, Nangong Hao realized that the Neijing sought to inflame his fury. Within the Neijing, any emotional disturbance will be magnified infinitely, threatening to undermine his resolve and possibly obliterate him entirely. Nevertheless, Nangong Hao merely extended his hand and, with a gentle gesture, unleashed his surging power, obliterating the taxi. The driver, shielded by Nangong Hao's deliberate intervention, survived, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Upon seeing Nangong Hao, his fear escalated. Who are you? Nangong Hao seized the taxi driver and brought him to the home of his so-called benefactor. This individual, though not a true ally, wielded a modicum of authority and flattered his superiors, managing to extricate himself from trouble with a bribe. In the dead of night, Nangong Hao dragged the screaming taxi driver into the presence of this petty official, who, along with his family, was startled awake. Finding the taxi driver sprawled on the floor and the specter of Nangong Hao looming beside him, they were paralyzed by fear. The official stammered, a foul odor permeated the air. He had soiled himself in terror. Unperturbed, Nangong Hao hoisted the official and proceeded to his superior's residence. This superior displayed a semblance of courage, perhaps having encountered formidable figures before, as he brazenly threatened to retaliate against Nangong Hao. In response, Nangong Hao delivered a swift blow, instantaneously reducing the superior's bullying son to a gruesome mass. The superior, witnessing the horrific transformation of his offspring, crumbled to the ground in despair. Subsequently, Nangong Hao took the trio to confront other accomplices, totaling 7 individuals. He led them to his parents' graves, a sight he had only been able to observe, powerless to intervene in their suffering. Now, Nangong Hao cast the culprits before the tombstones and declared, "If you wish for your families to live, you must bow down until death." Frightened, the 7 men either wept in desperation or shouted in defiance. But Nangong Hao remained unfazed, departing momentarily. In a blink, he returned with their families, albeit in a state of slumber. He understood that the innocent should not bear the brunt of their misdeeds. His intention was merely to instill fear in the 7 men. As for the son who had met his end, he had indeed committed a crime and deserved his fate. "You must begin, or witness your loved ones perish before you, and I shall lay the blame at your feet," Nangong Hao threatened, pointing at the taxi driver. Overwhelmed by the insurmountable pressure exerted by Nangong Hao, the driver broke down in tears, hastily bowing before the tombstone. "I'm sorry, I was wrong, please spare me." Nangong Hao turned to the others. "Are you not afraid for your families? Then I shall remove a part of your bodies every minute." The remaining accomplices, who had previously hesitated, were now engulfed in panic. They all bowed fervently. Nangong Hao insisted they must bow until death. As they grew dizzy and blood streamed from their foreheads, they dared not cease. They believed that should Nangong Hao be dead and transformed into a ghost, they too would suffer the same fate. In a moment of desperation, one individual, driven by madness, charged toward the gravestone, seeking to end his life. Nangong Hao yanked him back. "If you seek death, you must bow until death." Realizing their predicament, the others resigned themselves to their fate, bowing with fervor. The incessant thuds echoed as one among them finally succumbed. Yet, he did not transform into a ghost. They possessed no souls. Nangong Hao discerned that this was not the true world, but merely an illusion. The individuals remained present, and Nangong Hao observed calmly until they all perished from their self-inflicted torment. The world around them dissolved into darkness. Nangong Hao assumed this was the end, but unexpectedly, the world reset once more. He found himself reliving the moments preceding his death, witnessing the lamentations of his family and the tragic fate of losing both parents. Was this a chance for him to make a different choice? Though it was the second time witnessing this, the emotional impact remained profound. Once again, Nangong Hao resorted to the same course of action, resulting in yet another repetition of events. Thus, the cycle persisted, occurring thousands upon thousands of times. His method remained unchanged, annihilating the chief offenders. On occasion, he submitted evidence to the authorities before eliminating a few individuals. Yet, the world remained dissatisfied, endlessly cycling. Ultimately, on the 10,000th iteration, Nangong Hao found release as the world collapsed. However, the cycle began anew, revisiting the events of the Guangyuan Tianyu. His life, from childhood to adulthood, filled with admiration, hostility, and exclusion. Many envied his talent and rejected his physique, yet their wives and womenfolk were enamored by Nangong Hao's unparalleled beauty. In such circumstances, many might have sought to conquer the women of their adversaries as a form of retribution. Yet, Nangong Hao did not succumb to such impulses. He loved women, but was not a slave to desire, nor would he seek vengeance upon the families of his foes. Nangong Hao navigated through his formative years once more, anticipating further repetitions. However, to his surprise, he succeeded after just one iteration. The world before him twisted rapidly, returning him to the Qin Guang Wang Dian. There, Qin Guang Wang spoke impassively, not guilty, sent him to the Zhuanlun Wang Dian, the Zhuanlun Wang, responsible for reincarnation. Other beings, witnessing this, urgently inquired of Nangong Hao, "What should we do?" "Maintain your Tao heart," he managed to utter before being forcibly transported away. The multitude of beings exchanged bewildered glances. "Maintain your Tao heart." These 4 words seemed clear, yet were inherently vague. However, Jinzi stepped forward without hesitation, unwilling to concede defeat. Though he had hesitated to be the first, he must now take the second step. Nangong Hao was transported to the Zhuanlun Wangdian. Previously, during their respective assignments to the 10 Yama halls, the Ying Zong had seemingly entered the Zhuanlun Wangdian, along with numerous other beings. Upon Nangong Hao's arrival, he found the scene to be one of utter devastation. Numerous ghostly messengers were ruthlessly attacking these beings, who were desperately resisting, including the members of the Ying Zong. Moreover, it appeared that the ghostly messengers were in greater numbers, surrounding these individuals completely. On either side of the Zhuanlun Hall stood a high platform, known as the Reincarnation Platform, which led to the realm of reincarnation. Some had attempted to comprehend the path of reincarnation there, only to be mercilessly sucked in and shredded. Thus, many beings were vehemently resisting any approach to that area, resulting in the current chaotic situation. Chapter 327, the 18th Layer of Hell. The Chosen One's Nangong Hao's sudden appearance startled many beings. The members of the Ying Zong, however, were filled with joy. A female elder quickly called out, "Nangong Inspector, please lend us your assistance." Observing the beleaguered Ying Zong members and the Zhuanlun Wang, who was also a Nirvana-level Saint King, Nangong Hao shook his head and said, "Do not resist any longer. Follow me to the Reincarnation Platform. It is merely a matter of traversing the 18 layers of hell." The beings were bewildered by his words. Shui Wenwen's eyes lit up as she had long harbored suspicions, though she was not entirely certain. Seeing Nangong Hao head towards the Reincarnation Platform, she immediately exclaimed, "Is that the 18 layers of hell of the Reincarnation Palace?" Indeed, the Qin Guang Wangdian is responsible for judgment, and by coming here, you are evading your sins. Thus you should endure suffering in the 18 layers of hell, Nangong Hao explained. Hearing this, the beings were filled with regret, wishing they had followed Nangong Hao into the Qin Guang Wangdian instead. At that moment, Nangong Hao stepped boldly into one of the reincarnation platforms. In an instant, he was reduced to nothingness, leaving many beings in a state of shock. They were unaware whether Nangong Hao had truly perished or had merely feigned death. It is known that he possessed a duplicate body. He was not afraid of death. Yet for many of these beings, death was a true finality. "Elders, junior sisters, let's go," Shui Wanwan declared resolutely, rushing toward the reincarnation platform. The elders of the Ying Zong exchanged glances and, with a firm resolve, declared, "Fortune favors the bold. Let us go. Follow us." A crowd surged into the reincarnation platform, and in an instant, they too were obliterated. Once these powerful figures departed, the remaining beings, even those from top-tier factions, could not withstand such devastation. With no other choice, they too followed into the reincarnation platform, bracing themselves for the worst. Some entered the left side, while others ventured to the right. When all beings had plunged in, they discovered that they had not met the fate of obliteration as expected. Instead, they found themselves in a dim and expansive world, cold and eerie, evoking an involuntary sense of dread. The sky was perpetually shrouded in mist. and the ground beneath was stained crimson. In the distance, haunting cries echoed ominously. Nearby stood a stone tablet inscribed with 4 large characters. Bashi Diyu, tongue-pulling hell. Below it was a smaller inscription. All those in the world who sow discord, slander, deceive, and speak with forked tongues shall enter this prison. Nan Gonghao stood at the forefront, glancing back with a teasing expression at the members of the Yingzong. Shui Wanwan felt uncomfortable under his gaze and furrowed her brow. Questioning, what are you looking at? Stirring up trouble seems to be a woman's forte, does it not? Nan Gonghao chuckled. Your silver tongue suits you well. Shui Wanwan retorted without hesitation. Ha! Nan Gonghao laughed heartily, unperturbed. Just then, a clanking sound of chains echoed from afar. In the next moment, several figures appeared out of thin air. These were ghostly messengers come to capture souls for punishment. At that moment, a being cried out, "Where's my elder brother? My sister hasn't come either. My master seems to have gone to the left reincarnation platform. Is there a difference? Does the other side not have to endure the 18 layers of hell?" Panic and regret spread among the crowd. Nan Gonghao chose to ignore these naive individuals. The reincarnation palace clearly required a series of tests and selections to identify heirs. Thus, regardless of which reincarnation platform one entered, it would not be an easy path. As discussions ensued, the ghostly messengers approached. They were selecting individuals based on criteria unknown to the gathered beings. Many were spared, but others, including Nan Gonghao and Shui Wanwan, were marked for capture. Shui Wanwan exclaimed in surprise. Is it because we argued that we were singled out? I don't know about you, but I was targeted due to my talents. Nan Gonghao replied nonchalantly. Shui Wanwan's eyes sparkled. I see. The reincarnation palace is selecting heirs? At this revelation, the other beings were astounded. The reincarnation palace selecting heirs was indeed a monumental event. It appeared that those chosen by the ghostly messengers were not because of their misdeeds, but rather due to their abilities and potential. The beings who had previously felt fortunate for not being selected now displayed expressions of embarrassment, while those who had been chosen were filled with excitement. The elders of the Ying, Zong, surveyed their surroundings and noted that all the selected individuals were of the human race, which brought smiles to their faces. The reincarnation palace would undoubtedly not choose outsiders. With no outsiders present, the crowd felt more at ease. Suddenly, chains surged forth, attempting to ensnare the necks of the crowd. Some dared not resist, fearing the loss of their opportunity for inheritance, while others attempted to evade, striving to demonstrate their defiance. Nan Gonghao snorted coldly, seizing a chain and forcefully tossing it aside. Shui Wanwan radiated a golden glow, shattering the chains of the ghostly messenger. Exchanging glances, they advanced together, stepping into the domain of Ba Shidiyu. Just then, more chains came rushing in, seeking to ensnare the two. The others behind them had already been captured, dragged by their necks into the abyss. As the name suggests, Ba Shidiyu involved the removal of tongues. How does it work? The chains would constrict around the offender's neck, tightening until they could not breathe, naturally causing them to open their mouths and stick out their tongues. Once the tongue was out, it was easily handled. Witnessing the tragic state of those around him, Nan Gonghao firmly rejected this fate. He immediately summoned the Yu Huangyin. Having previously absorbed a vast amount of spiritual veins from the Shengmo zone, it had been in a state of slumber and evolution. Now, it had completed its transformation, possessing its own innate divine abilities akin to the divine patterns of the stone man from the eastern wilderness. The sacred spirit within the Yu Huangyin could summon the ancient heavenly court. However, at present, it could only conjure a faint shadow of a world, with the southern heaven gate being the clearest manifestation. Now, the Yu Huangyin floated above Nan Gonghao's head, exuding primordial might. This overwhelming force caused the ghostly messengers to tremble in fear and retreat. Shui Wanwan, seizing the moment, approached without hesitation. Would you mind if I hitch a ride? Nan Gonghao replied calmly, I sell my skills, not my body. Shui Wanwan was taken aback, then filled with disdain. I've never seen someone so self-absorbed. Congratulations. You've gained some insight today, Nan Gonghao replied nonchalantly. Is this how you won over my sister Shui Yao? Shui Wanwan scoffed. Unfortunately, it won't work on me. It seems my level of self-absorption pales in comparison to yours, Nan Gonghao remarked. Shui Wanwan quickly realized that Nan Gonghao's words were a clear indication of his lack of interest in her. One infuriating individual. However, amidst their banter, they had already arrived at a truly terrifying place. Chapter 328. The terrifying ghostly messenger of the tongue-pulling hell. This place is a wretched land, filled with naked individuals. Chains are wrapped around their necks, and some refuse to utter a word. Small demons pry open their mouths and pull out their tongues, but they do not sever them. Rather, they continue to stretch them endlessly. During this process, those individuals endure immense suffering, their cries echoing through the ears and minds of Nan Gonghao and others, penetrating deep into their souls. An involuntary wave of fear washes over them. Nan Gonghao raises an eyebrow. It seems capable of affecting the soul. The power of Tianming Gong radiates, shielding them from this influence. Shui Wanwan also envelopes herself in a unique aura, repelling the agonizing screams. In the distance, the Chosen Ones are all prodigies from various factions. Some are renowned for their strength, while others, though less known, are by no means ordinary. Despite the chains around their necks, they do not retreat. They let out low growls, pushing back against the cries of despair. However, the true horror of the tongue-pulling hell lies not only in these cries, but also in the numerous small instruments of torture. All of them emanate a terrifying power. They are all sacred artifacts. Though Nan Gonghao usually treats forbidden tools like mere stones, the might of sacred artifacts is undeniable. After all, every sacred artifact contains the formidable power of the saint who forged it, especially those of the prodigies, which are even more ferocious and violent. At this moment, one of the accompanying prodigies is being yanked by a sacred artifact, attempting to pry out his tongue. The prodigy releases the power of the Tao, establishing a robust defense. Unfortunately, the sacred artifact crashes violently, shattering his defenses. The prodigy fails to withstand even a single blow and is left in excruciating pain as his tongue is torn from his mouth. Observing this, Nan Gonghao remarks indifferently, "If one cannot withstand the resistance here, they will truly be trapped forever." Upon hearing this, those nearby are astonished and struggle desperately against their bonds. A ghostly general of the Saintly King realm approaches, fixating his gaze on Nan Gonghao. Fortunately, he is merely at the asking Tao level. Nan Gonghao calmly states, "You have come to capture me. I shall take my leave first." Mine has also arrived. Shui Wanwan gazes at another asking Tao level Saintly King approaching from afar. After all, this is a realm of hell. It cannot be breached so easily. Nan Gonghao strides forward, enveloped in the power of the Tao of Thunder and various formidable forces. With a swift motion, he unleashes a thunder whip towards the distant asking Tao-level ghostly messenger. The ghostly messenger conjures a large pair of pincers, specifically designed for pulling tongues. The pincers are imbued with the power of imprisonment. A wave of terrifying force envelopes Nan Gonghao, binding him, with a force akin to quicksand, rendering him immobile. The power of the Tao of Thunder begins to wane, subdued. Undeterred, Nan Gonghao utilizes the Tao of Rupture to tear apart the bindings, striving to escape. Unexpectedly, the pincers materialize directly before him. The Tao of Space? Nan Gonghao is taken aback, instinctively preparing to unleash his own Tao of Space. Suddenly, he recalls his wager with the Jian Zone, forbidding its use. Helpless, Nan Gonghao musters all his strength to resist the pincers. He throws a powerful punch, his formidable physique accompanied by a lethal strike forged from 10 distinct Tao powers, forcing back the pincers and the ghostly messenger. Simultaneously, Nan Gonghao swiftly retreats. He realizes this is not the Tao of Space. A supreme divine ability could not be so easily repelled. Meanwhile, Shui Wanwan also retreats in disarray. She is enveloped in golden light, radiating immense power. Yet, her expression is one of uncertainty. It appears that this adversary wields the Tao of Time. Upon hearing this, Nan Gonghao's heart stirs. Shall we switch? Mine is the Tao of Space. Very well, Shui Wanwan responds without hesitation. The Tao of Space is far easier to contend with than the Tao of Time. Concurrently, Shui Wanwan teasingly inquires, "Do you regret agreeing with Jianzi not to utilize the time-space Tao?" It is not yet time for regrets. Nan Gonghao charges forward, manipulating the array of the Tao, coalescing multiple powers into a singular force and launching a ferocious assault. However, a black hole suddenly appears, devouring his strength. Subsequently, a massive stone mill rolls toward him, intended to crush the tongues of the condemned after being pulled out. Incredibly heavy, it could flatten a mountain of 10,000 zhang. The ground trembles, and the cosmos quakes. This is the power of the Tao of Space. Nan Gonghao continuously unleashes various lethal strikes, but fails to withstand the onslaught of the stone mill. For the first time, he finds himself relentlessly pushed back by an asking Tao-level Saintly King, struggling to resist. The Yuhuang seal above his head activates, conjuring an ancient illusory world. The world is indistinct, yet from the moment it begins to coalesce, it emanates a vast, terrifying power, causing numerous ghostly spirits to emit horrified cries and retreat. Boom! Another thunderous sound erupts as the immense Southern Heaven Gate descends, blocking Nengonghao's path. The Southern Heaven Gate radiates boundless might, with several spatial black holes appearing above, attempting to destroy and devour it. Yet, it remains unyielding. The Southern Heaven Gate stands firm, impervious to the tremors of the Tao of space and the relentless collisions of the stone mill. Nengongao immediately retreats, distancing himself. This time, Shui Wanwan does not return. She is ensnared, despite her continual expulsion of golden light and the summoning of a golden war god behind her strike. She is powerless, for she faces the Tao of time. Clearly, their exchange has not yielded the desired effect. This realm is likely another form of illusion. Here, various Tao powers can be simulated. The Tao of space and the Tao of time are both mere illusions, virtual manifestations. The ghostly messengers lack such formidable power. Yet, this power is still somewhat real. After all, if one cannot resist it, they will be annihilated. The methods for breaking this illusion are uncertain, but one of them should involve confronting this asking Tao-level saintly king. Nengongao shakes his head, no longer hesitating, and charges once more. The Southern Heaven Gate stands firm, obstructing the stone mill. Nengongao hurries toward the asking Tao-level ghostly messenger. The ghostly messenger lets out a mournful wail. Then its arms extend dramatically, reaching for Nengonghao's body. Seeing the sharp, purple-green claws, Nengongao realizes that being caught would result in his body being pierced. Electricity crackles. Thunder transforms into a long blade, coalescing over 20 types of Tao powers, slashing toward the outstretched arms. Bang! Accompanied by two explosive sounds, sparks fly. The arms are not severed. The ghostly messenger seizes Nengonghao's body, violently throwing him to the ground. Boom! The stone mill is summoned back by the ghostly messenger, rolling toward Nengonghao with the power of space. Clearly, this ghostly messenger intends not merely to pull out tongues, but to crush Nengonghao into a pulp. Get away from me. Nengonghao transforms into a being of holy light, as if a deity has descended. Chapter 329. The entire peaceful family mobilizes to the next level. Holy light radiates. 12 pairs of pure white wings emerge from behind Nengonghao, along with a long spear forming. Judgment against evil. Buzz. The light transforms into a beam, surging forward. Boom. The beam infused with the power of judgment collides with the stone mill, forcing it back slightly. Nengonghao is well-versed in the Tao of space, allowing him to evade its power and launch his attack. Space can encompass and expel all things. However, the strength of the Tao itself is ultimately constrained by the wielder's abilities. With a flap of his wings, Nengonghao transforms into light, vanishing in an instant. This is akin to a power of spatial transfer. In any place illuminated by light, Nengonghao could arrive instantaneously. At this moment, he found himself behind the ghostly envoy who manipulated the colossal stone mill. With a fierce thrust of his spear, he struck down, only to be taken by surprise as a black hole emerged behind the envoy, threatening to engulf both him and his spear. A faint smile graced Nengonghao's lips as he solemnly commanded, "Explode." Boom! 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 All surrounding light detonated in a brilliant eruption, plunging the world into utter darkness. The scene mirrored that of a black hole, yet its reach was far greater, directly thrusting the envoy into the very black hole he had conjured. The coldness was overwhelming, and the impact was violent, resembling the end of days. Despite Nengonghao's formidable strength, he coughed up blood from the immense toll. After all, he was light itself, and now he too was caught in the explosion. Had he not forcibly stabilized himself, he would have already succumbed to collapse. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Nengonghao withdrew from his absolute dominion over light. He then gazed upon the spot where the ghostly envoy had stood. The light had now returned, revealing the scene. The envoy had vanished, but the stone mill remained in place. Nengonghao seized the stone mill, intending to refine it later. He then turned his gaze towards Shui Wanwan in the distance. This woman was remarkable. The golden radiance surrounding her was akin to the path of wealth. With a mere wave of her hand, countless treasures of gold and silver cascaded down. Gold and silver could indeed command divine beings. Shui Wanwan had managed to summon divine envoys with her riches to aid her in battle. Such a tactic was truly impressive. Dozens of divine envoys relentlessly assaulted the ghostly creature wielding pliers. Even with the power of time at their disposal, they could not withstand the onslaught. Shortly after Nangongao had dispatched his opponent, Shui Wanwan finally overcame hers. She retreated to Nangonghao's side, exhaling softly. What a hassle. Things will only get more troublesome from here. Nangongao shook his head slightly. The two of them turned to observe the other prodigies who had been brought along. Some were desperately resisting, while others had already succumbed to control, destined to remain here in torment until death. At that moment, a ghostly general appeared above the tongue-pulling hell, revealing itself to be a Wu-level Saint King. Nangonghao's heart trembled. Could it be that every layer of the 18 hells is guarded by a Wu-level Saint King? This is quite normal. The Reincarnation Palace is so powerful. Shui Wanwan regarded Nangongao with disdain, clearly considering him uninformed. Nangongao sighed. But didn't the Reincarnation Palace fall? Shui Wanwan's expression froze, quickly shifting to one of horror. Indeed, hadn't the Reincarnation Palace fallen? How then could there be so many powerful beings, so much formidable strength? Was it possible that the Reincarnation Palace had not been completely annihilated? Or was there another conspiracy at play? Boldly slaughtering ghostly envoys, you shall be judged in the Scissor Hell, the ghostly general bellowed. Subsequently, a ghostly gate swung open, chains erupting from within, aiming to capture Nangongao and Shui Wanwan. In the distance, a few prodigies who had also broken free from their restraints were being pursued. Let us go, Nangongao declared, charging into the next layer of hell. Shui Wanwan refused to be outdone. The other prodigies exchanged glances before simultaneously rushing forward. All prodigies possessed unwavering confidence, believing they could prevail. Should they fail, it would simply be due to insufficient strength, and they would blame no one but themselves. However, upon entering the Scissor Hell, Nangongao activated the Dragon Emperor Palace, bringing forth Su Wuhui, Shun Kongwu, and others. Navigating the 18 hells will be beneficial for you, Nangongao stated calmly. He had discerned that each layer of the 18 hells presented a unique trial. If they could endure them all, the benefits would be immeasurable. They might even gain profound insights along the way. Just earlier, Nangongao had deepened his understanding of the path of space. Su Bui, having been pinned up for far too long, finally emerged, elated. The 18 hells of the Reincarnation Palace? I'd long to explore them. Shen Kongwu and Sun Su wore serious expressions, aware of the dangers that lay ahead. Yin Wushuang and Chu Danner also emerged. Chu Danner was taken aback. This is the Reincarnation Palace? Is it appropriate for me to be here? After all, the faction she belonged to had once attacked the Reincarnation Palace. Now, she found herself here seeking their inheritance. It felt rather inappropriate. Yet Nangongao waved dismissively. Fear not. Face the trials and strive to conquer the 18 hells. Hearing this, Su Wuhui curiously inquired, Elder brother, where are you going? Legend has it that below the 18 hells lies the hell of no return. I wish to see it. Nangongao replied with a tranquil smile. Shui Wanwan was astonished. How will you descend? Nangongao spread his arms, and the power of reincarnation manifested, as this mysterious and eerie force enveloped him. Everyone around stared in disbelief. The path of reincarnation, they exclaimed in unison. Nangongao nodded, then turned to seek the ghostly gate leading to the next layer. The others, witnessing this, wore expressions of resigned smiles. None of them understood where Nangongao had acquired the path of reincarnation. It was truly a grand irony. They had fought desperately for the sake of inheritance, yet Nangongao had already mastered the path of reincarnation. If he so wished, he could bypass all obstacles and obtain the inheritance immediately. The once ardent spirits of the group suddenly dimmed. Nonetheless, they still needed to traverse the 18 hells. After all, they had come all this way. They could not leave empty-handed. The 18 hells not only offered a means of self-improvement, but also the opportunity to acquire the sacred artifacts of ghostly envoys. However, upon seeing Nangongao prepare to leave, Su Wuhui hurriedly followed. Elder brother, wait for me. I will go with you. Nangongao paused his steps, allowing Su Wuhui to catch up. Together, they sought the ghostly gate. As they approached, the fierce ghostly envoys, upon sighting Nangongao, knelt in fear, respectfully welcoming him without daring to cause trouble. As for Su Wuhui, it was as if they could not see him at all, completely disregarding his presence. This was the invincible nature of the Emperor of Fortune. Soon, Nangongao located the entrance to the next layer, where a Wu-level Saint King stood guard. Not only did he show no fear of Nangongao, but he also seemed inclined to grant him passage. Chapter 330. Traversing the 18 hells, encountering beings from beyond the realm. At the entrance to the next layer, The Wu-level ghostly general barred their path, fixating his vacant gaze upon Nan Gonghao. Is this fellow merely a projection? Su Wui greeted curiously. Indeed, the power of the past was so overwhelming that it left an imprint here. Once external forces penetrate, it will be activated, Nan Gonghao replied calmly, observing the ghostly general. The reincarnation palace had long since perished, with all its inhabitants perishing in battle. Yet, upon reaching the Wu-level Saint King realm, one's overwhelming personal strength could leave an imprint even in death. The ghostly general before them was merely the vestige of a once mighty being. Even so, this was no ordinary foe to confront lightly. Nan Gonghao and Su Wuhui combined would not stand a chance against this ghostly general. Emitting the power of the path of reincarnation, Nan Gonghao sought to compel this formidable being to retreat. To his astonishment, the ghostly general not only did not step back, but advanced instead. Subsequently, the ghostly general entered Nan Gonghao's body. Buzz! The chaos Qinglian materialized, absorbing the power of the imprint. Nan Gonghao realized, was the ghostly general attempting to impart its strength to him? Before long, the imprint of the ghostly general activated the chaos Qinglian, unlocking over a dozen paths, including one particularly potent path, the path of balance. This power could temporarily elevate his realm to match that of his adversaries. Of course, it could also bring his enemies down to his level. Nan Gonghao had not anticipated such an effect. Had I known of the tongue-pulling hell, I would have summoned the power of reincarnation. Nevertheless, it is of little consequence. We shall discuss it later. For now, let us proceed. The third layer is known as the Iron Tree Hell, where countless towering trees flourish. These trees, from their roots to their leaves and trunks, are composed entirely of pure iron, sharp as a blade. Each leaf bears a wretched spirit, howling in agony without a shred of compassion. Upon witnessing this, Su Wuhui sighed. These must be the enemies of the Reincarnation Palace. Indeed, they are likely former disciples of the Reincarnation Palace. Nan Gonghao mused, a flicker of inspiration igniting within him. If there are former disciples here, perhaps they could engage in conversation. However, as he surveyed the multitude of suffering spirits, discerning their true identities proved challenging. An idea struck him. Nan Gonghao intentionally released his reincarnation power, allowing it to permeate the entire Iron Tree Hell. Soon enough, a voice cried out, "I am an elite disciple of the Reincarnation Palace. Save me." Su Wuhui's face brightened. "Brother, wait here. I shall bring him to you." Nan Gonghao nodded in acknowledgement. Before long, Su Wuhui returned, leading the spirit. Ordinarily, he would have faced pursuit from the ghostly enforcers for rescuing a condemned spirit. Yet his extraordinary fortune allowed him to evade such retribution. The elite disciple brought forth appeared remarkably aged, yet his cultivation remained at merely a 3-star saint. Can this iron tree truly suppress the enhancement of one's power? Nan Gonghao inquired. The aged disciple did not respond, choosing instead to sit cross-legged on the ground, attempting to heal his wounds. Though he was reduced to a mere spirit, he could still cultivate. Observing this, Nan Gonghao activated his Tianming skill, forcefully pressing the old disciple against the ground. The elite disciple let out a pained cry before angrily struggling. "Do you dare to lay hands on me? Without my assistance, you shall never escape this layer of hell." Nan Gonghao remained silent. The most terrifying threats are those unvoiced. Thus, he continued to rub the disciple against the ground. Having been imprisoned for countless years, the disciple's physical form was long gone, and his spirit had weakened considerably. Where was his strength to resist? Realizing that his threats held no sway over Nan Gonghao, he quickly relented. "Forgive me, Senior. I was blind to my own shortcomings. I implore you to spare me." Nan Gonghao understood that this individual did not genuinely submit. He was merely afraid of being killed. However, it mattered little. "How is it that you survived while the entire Reincarnation Palace perished?" Nan Gonghao pressed. "Not only I, but all souls imprisoned in the 18 hells remain alive. Many of them are enemies of the Reincarnation Palace. Even on the battlefield, they would pose a danger, possibly turning against us." The elite disciple dared not show contempt or engage in further banter, speaking candidly instead. His former pride as a disciple of the Reincarnation Palace had long since vanished, leaving only humility and a desire to appease. Nan Gonghao surmised the reason these spirits had not participated in battle. He simply sought confirmation. Su Wuhui interjected. "What crime did you commit that led to your imprisonment here?" The elite disciple's face flushed with embarrassment, and he lowered his head. Nan Gonghao stated flatly, "Those who sow discord among kin inciting animosity among fathers and sons, brothers, sisters, and spouses, shall find themselves in the Iron Tree Hell. The elite disciple awkwardly explained, I merely believe that fellow was unworthy of my senior sister. Su Wuhui realized. Ah, so you attempted to steal another's wife? Nan Gonghao waved his hand. Your sentence must surely be complete by now. It has long since expired, yet the fall of the Reincarnation Palace has barred my exit. The elite disciple lamented with a wry smile. What do you know of the Reincarnation Palace? Nan Gonghao queried. The elite disciple's eyes lit up at the question. I possess extensive knowledge and can guide you, senior. Nan Gonghao regarded the elite disciple with a discerning gaze, aware of the duplicity lurking beneath his honeyed words. Nevertheless, he deemed it useful. Rise and lead the way, he commanded, permitting the elite disciple to stand. The disciple quickly complied, walking ahead with feigned obedience. Yet soon, he added, I have several fellow disciples here. I wonder if Wu Hui might assist in bringing them along. Wu Hui, go help him gather his companions, Nan Gonghao instructed. He, in turn, sought out the guardian ghost general of this lair. Su Wu Hui, eager to explore this lair further, readily agreed. Shortly thereafter, Nan Gonghao arrived at the exit of the third lair, where the imprint of a Saint King of the Wu level awaited him. This imprint entered Nan Gonghao's body once more, imparting its legacy. Gradually, he absorbed and mastered the newfound power within him. After several hours, Shun Kongwu and the others emerged from the second layer, while Su Wuhui returned with the elite disciple in tow. You have arrived just in time. I shall proceed to the next layer. Nan Gonghao greeted them before continuing on his way. Shui Wanwan's expression darkened. Compared to her arduous trials, Nan Gonghao's progress seemed almost effortless. This irked her to some extent, yet it did not alter the reality of his swift advancement. Thus, he descended layer by layer through the 18 hells. With each level, he acquired the full power of the guardian ghost generals, to the extent that by the time he reached the 18th layer, he had amassed over 150 varieties of great Dao power, an accomplishment surpassing many at the Saint King level of Wu. However, upon entering the deepest abyss of the 18 hells, the Hell of No Return, Nan Gonghao encountered a formidable foe, the very foreign power that had sought to recruit him. This adversary possessed the Mirror Dao, a force akin to the Copy Dao, yet entirely distinct, seemingly allowing the acquisition of others' great Dao powers. A sudden sensation washed over Nan Gonghao. It felt as though he had been manipulated by this individual, who was using him to obtain the great Dao powers of the 18 layers of hell. Chapter 331. Those unwilling to submit shall perish. You have awaited me here for quite some time, have you not? Nan Gonghao regarded the smiling foreign youth before him. The youth shrugged. Not for long, as your speed is commendable. Indeed, this individual had deliberately schemed against Nan Gonghao, or rather, against all living beings. Anyone who gained the legacy of the 18 hells would inevitably find themselves drawn into his web. Moreover, upon their first encounter, one might find their own great Dao stripped away by the Mirror Dao, which acted far more swiftly than the Copy Dao. While the Copy Dao could be retained long-term, the Mirror Dao only offered temporary preservation. The foreign youth regarded Nan Gonghao with admiration. Previously, I did seek to sow discord, hoping to turn you against these individuals. I never anticipated you would reach this point and acquire the Reincarnation Dao. I genuinely admire you now. Become my servant, and I shall elevate you to a position of power beneath me. Nan Gonghao gazed impassively at the foreign youth. Is it merely your Mirror Dao that you rely upon? Su Wuhui also looked on with disdain. You dare flaunt such trivial skills before my brother? The foreign youth remained unfazed. Turning to Su Wuhui, you are the Fate Emperor of the Guangyuan Heavenly Domain, are you not? Su Wuhui was taken aback. You know me? Of course. Your Guangyuan Heavenly Domain is already under our control, the foreign youth proclaimed haughtily. During our initial assault, we were overly eager and took a wrong turn. As the saying goes, the best strategy is to undermine the enemy. After our first failure, we opted for infiltration. Years have passed, and many of the great forces within the Guangyuan Heavenly Domain are now under our influence, the foreign youth declared with lofty arrogance. Although Su Wuhui was usually carefree, he could not help but grow solemn upon hearing this. Had this been in the past, he would have dismissed such claims with scorn. However, recent events involving the Jixia Academy and the forced encroachment of the holy demon sect into the realm of inheritance had led him to believe the foreign youth's words. Even if they were exaggerated, they were unlikely to be overly so. Nan Gonghao remained composed and remarked, if you truly wish to seize control of Guangyuan Tianyu, You would have acted decisively to obliterate this place by now. The absence of such action can only be attributed to two reasons. Your confidence is not as robust as you claim, and you are entangled in your own troubles. Upon hearing this, the young man from the outer realm shrugged. Indeed, we face some difficulties, yet dealing with you would still be quite effortless. Nan Gonghao scoffed. So, you have bribed the inspectors, have you? The outer realm youth frowned, casting a wary glance, seemingly pondering how he had come to this knowledge. However, he quickly regained his composure. Are you attempting to deceive me? Indeed, Nan Gonghao was deliberately trying to provoke the youth. In his mind, these beings from the outer realm had consistently sought to annihilate this region. The last invasion had been on the verge of success, but had abruptly diminished its assault, allowing Guanyu and Tianyu to triumph and drive them out entirely. This was evidently due to an unforeseen and substantial obstacle they encountered. What manner of trouble could incapacitate 4 celestial domains simultaneously without affecting Guanyu and Tianyu? It was clear that some individuals or forces intervened to halt their advance. This force could very well be other invaders. Furthermore, there was the matter of the outer battlefield. Logically, it should be the battleground where Guanyu and Tianyu clashed with the other 4 domains' formidable beings. However, the situation of the powerful from Guanyu and Tianyu and the 4 domains did not align with this assumption. If the outer battlefield was not engaged with these invaders, then who were they contending against? For others, this would be a source of great vexation. Yet, as a transgressor, Man Gonghao's imagination was boundless. Thus, he surmised that the outer battlefield represented a confrontation between this universe and another. In essence, Guanyu and Tianyu and the invading 4 celestial domains were aligned. This universe must have certain inspectors, akin to Ma's own role as a patrolling envoy, tasked with thwarting foreign incursions and internal strife within the academy. It was reasonable to assume that when the 4 domains initially attacked Guanyu and Tianyu, they encountered unprecedented resistance. During this interval, some inspectors arrived to caution them against reckless actions, which ultimately led to their hesitance and subsequent retreat. Of course, this was merely speculation. Thus, Man Gonghao had intentionally sought to deceive the outer realm youth. Observing the youth's hesitation, he realized his conjecture was accurate. You truly possess audacity, returning after being thwarted once. Nan Gonghao's expression turned cold. The outer realm youth, caught in the act, no longer concealed his intentions, dismissively stating, "What if you know? This insignificant territory holds little to fear." Nan Gonghao inquired with curiosity, "Do even the 7 great powers remain unaware of these matters?" Surrounded and isolated from the outside world, Guanyu and Tianyu was naturally uninformed. The outer realm youth ceased his pretenses. Understanding dawned upon Nan Gonghaо. Guanyu and Tianyu's standing in the outer realm was akin to that of Dong Wangyu, deliberately shrouded in ignorance, rendering them cut off from vital information. Their developmental lag inevitably left them vulnerable to assaults. Contemplating further, Man Gonghao asked, "Do the powerful venturing to the outer battlefield remain oblivious?" One of his ancestors resided there. Logically aware of the circumstances, why had she never mentioned it? The outer realm youth scoffed. They know, but who dares to speak? Given the stark disparity between Guanyu and Tianyu and the 4 realms, should they be exposed to the outer world's brutality, they would surely crumble. This was indeed a valid point. However, there must be other factors at play, such as an inspector who had been compromised, warning returning powerful beings not to disclose any information regarding the outer realm to Guanyu and Tianyu. Reflecting on this, Nan Gonghao's lips curled into a sardonic smile. I wonder how that inspector, who turns a blind eye to your actions, would react upon discovering the annihilation of your 4 realms. The outer realm youth regarded Nan Gonghao with pity. "You are overthinking. The chasm between Guanyu and Tianyu and the 4 realms is insurmountable." Nan Gonghao chose not to engage further in futile discourse. Such words bore little significance. The beings from the outer realm had yet to make their move, likely restrained by particular circumstances. This moment represented the optimal opportunity for Guanyu and Tianyu to counterattack. A tempestuous aura emanated from Nan Gonghao as he cast a frigid gaze at the outer realm youth. Observing this, the youth expressed a hint of regret. "Do you truly not wish to become my servant?" Su Wuhui unleashed a formidable power, poised to flee and alert other strong beings. "Regrettably, I cannot permit either of you to depart. Since you refuse to submit, you shall face death." The outer realm youth charged forward with ferocity.